Okay, let's dive right into this. Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're taking a deep dive into the incredibly immersive, highly visual, and cinematic world of Ray Bradbury's absolute dystopian classic, Fahrenheit 451. We are going to explore a reality where the simple preservation of knowledge is treated as a major crime and where technology has completely and utterly replaced genuine human connection. Just look at this iconic 50th anniversary edition cover. This striking visual of the burning paperman, it literally tells you everything you need to know about the atmosphere we're walking into here. This is a world where fire isn't used for warmth or comfort. No, it's a weapon of absolute state-sponsored destruction. And that leads us straight to this stark opening quote. It was a pleasure to burn. I mean, what an incredible cold open, right? Here we meet our protagonist, Guy Montag. He's a fireman. But, in this society, firemen don't put out fires, they start them. Specifically, they ignite them to destroy books. At first, Montag actually finds this destructive, almost symphonic joy in seeing things blackened and changed. He's got his helmet numbered 451. His eyes are reflecting the orange flame. He is fully bought into the system. Section 1. A spark of doubt. So in this first act, Montag's robotic, unquestioning existence gets suddenly and irreversibly challenged. Now, what's really interesting about this is the stark contrast between the two women in his life. They basically represent the two paths of this society. On one side, you have his wife, Mildred. She's completely numb, constantly plugged into these seashell ear thimbles that pump this endless electronic ocean of sound right into her brain. And she is totally obsessed with her interactive TV parlor walls. But then, on the other side, there's his new teenage neighbor, Clarice McClellan. Clarice is just full of this radical, deeply observant humanity. She actually stops to notice the dew on the grass, the man in the moon, and she stops Montag dead in his tracks with one remarkably simple question. Are you happy? Because of that question, Montag suddenly realizes he's basically been wearing his happiness like a mask, and the incredibly chilling response to Mildred's subsequent suicide attempt perfectly captures why. Montag finds an empty pill bottle. Meanwhile, jet bombs are screaming overhead. There's this constant looming threat of war. And then, when help arrives, it's not doctors. It's these totally impersonal handymen who bring in snake-like machines to violently pump her stomach and literally replace her blood. They finish up, smoke their cigarettes, charge $50, and just leave. It so perfectly highlights the deep emotional emptiness and mechanical apathy of this entire world. Section 2. The End of Books. You're probably wondering, how did society even get this way? Well, it wasn't some sudden violent government takeover. It was actually a slow decay. Walk with me through this timeline. This is based on Captain Beatty's history lesson to Montag. It all started back around the Civil War, and then it really accelerated with the invention of photography. Fast forward to the early 20th century, and radio and television brought us mass media. And because things had mass, they had to become simpler. Books were cut shorter, turning into these quick condensations and digests. Essentially, technology, the obsession with speed, and the pressure of minor minorities not wanting to be offended, all of it leveled culture into what Beatty calls a paste-pudding norm. People simply chose mindless entertainment over challenging thought. But the truly horrifying turning point for Montag happens during what was supposed to be a routine raid. They corner an old woman, but she flat out refuses to leave her hidden library. Instead, she recites this quote, which is actually a historical reference to martyrs burning at the stake, and she chooses to strike the match herself, burning alive right there with her books. It is a deeply traumatic, highly visual, and highly cinematic moment. It completely shatters Montag's compliance, and it prompts his ultimate treasonous act. His hand, almost like it has a mind of its own, steals a book. Desperate for some kind of understanding, Montag tracks down a retired English professor named Faber. And Faber reveals a brilliant philosophy. So the crucial point is this: books themselves aren't magic. The magic is the detailed life that they record. Faber outlines the three specific things this dystopia is completely missing. First, the quality of information, the detailed pores in the face of life. Second, the leisure to actually sit and digest that information, far away from the screaming, immersive parlor walls. And third, the right to carry out actions based on what we learn from the first two. Section 3. Rebellion and the Chase. Okay, things accelerate significantly here. Betrayed by his own wife, who actually calls the alarm on him, Montag is forced by Captain Beatty to burn his very own house. It's a visually striking, terrifying scene. The text describes it so well. The books leapt and danced like roasted birds. But pushed to the absolute brink, Montag doesn't just stop at his house. He turns his flamethrower on Captain Beatty himself, incinerating his boss and instantly making himself public enemy number one. What follows is an absolutely frenetic, televised chase. The authorities unleash the mechanical hound, which is this terrifying robotic beast that tracks by scent and injects lethal venom. The phrase 20 million Montags running perfectly captures the sheer horror of this manhunt. The city tracks him with helicopter cameras, broadcasting the whole thing live right into everyone's interactive parlor walls. They're literally treating his life-or-death struggle as a high-speed circus spectacle for the masses. 10. That is the breathless police countdown broadcasting across the entire city. The police literally order the entire population to simultaneously open their front doors or look out their windows right at the count of 10 to catch the fugitive. He is the only man running in the night city, racing against thousands of turning doorknobs and the terrifying green glow of that mechanical hound. Section 4. The River and Rebirth. And just as the countdown hits 10, Montag hits the water. He escapes the city's electric grip. The river sweeps him away into the darkness. He strips off his kerosene-soaked clothes, pours raw liquor all over himself to mask his scent from the hound, and just lets the water carry him away from that loud, synthetic city. He emerges into the smells and textures of the quiet wilderness, a true cinematic transition, eventually finding a single, familiar, abandoned railroad track to follow. Following those tracks, he meets a man named Granger and a group of outcasts sitting around a real, warming fire. They call themselves the Book People. Now, they're this flexible, fragmented organization of former academics. But here's the catch. They don't carry physical books, because that would get them arrested. Instead, they memorize classic texts to preserve them. They are literally living, breathing human dust jackets, keeping history alive in their minds, just waiting for this dark age to finally pass. But before any rebuilding can even begin, the long-rumored war finally breaks out. Jets scream overhead, and in a fraction of a second, the city is completely annihilated. The city rolled over and fell down dead in an instant of atomic fire. Clinging to the trembling earth, Montag remembers the book of Ecclesiastes, realizing that amazingly he has finally retained the words. Looking out of the destroyed city, Granger talks about the mythical phoenix. And this brilliantly illustrates the core message of the entire story. Like the phoenix, humanity has this terrible habit of destroying itself, building its own funeral pyres, and burning itself up. But we always spring out of the ashes to be born again. The one distinct advantage we have over the phoenix, though, is our capacity to actually remember the silly, destructive things we've done, so that maybe, just maybe, we might eventually stop doing them. Which leaves us with one massive, provocative question. Will we remember enough of our own humanity to stop building the funeral pyres? Because this cinematic story, it's not just about censorship. It's a mirror reflecting our own relationship with technology, with shallow entertainment, and with the loss of quiet, meaningful leisure. I highly, highly encourage you to go read the source material. It is an absolute masterpiece. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.